Hey Betty, hey Kathy.
All right, we're good.
So I'm ready to start. I'm Susan. I'm a compulsive overeater.
Susan.
Thank you, Kathy, for inviting me to share. It's nice to see you. I only get to see you twice a year, but not even now, not even that. Wow, the host is spotlighted by video, so that means I have to look at myself. No, I'm going to look up above at all of you. So 20 minutes, it's hard to cover all the years in 20 minutes, but I'll do my best. I attended my first OA meeting on August 2nd, 1966. I was living in Los Angeles. I had just graduated from high school. I had not quite turned 18. I turned 18 4 weeks later. But I came to OA because my sister called me and told me I had to. And my sister was aside from food, she was my higher power. And I attended my first meeting with my mother. So that kind of tells you that this is a family disease in my family on my mother's side. I've had what's the word I'm looking for? Unhealthy relationship with food as far back as I can remember. And even from before I can remember, because there are stories my aunt has told about me. So I know that food's always been something I've used for comfort. I grew up feeling different and apart from. I never felt like I belonged anywhere, never felt like I fit in. I didn't feel like anybody liked me. The only thing nice I could say about myself was I might be pretty if I would lose weight. That was what my father would tell me. You'd be so pretty if you would just lose weight. So that was the extent of my self-esteem. So I came to OA. I wasn't ready to stop eating. I came to OA because I wanted to lose weight, because all my life I'd been told I was overweight. And when I look at pictures of me as a child, I was not overweight, not really until I hit puberty. But I did have a belly, and I think that's just genetic. That's how I'm built. Because I look at my body, I look at my face, I was not, I was perfectly fine, but it was never good enough for my mother. She was pretty self-obsessed with her body image as well. So I came into OA, I attended my first meeting. They handed me a piece of paper with a diet on it. It was a food plan, but as far as I was concerned, it was a diet. And I was still enough of a teenager to be rebellious, as in, you can't tell me what to do. So they said to find a sponsor who had what you wanted, and there weren't any young people. And I thought there were a lot of old people. I think they may have been as old as 30. Maybe someone was even 40. But to me, that seemed pretty old. So I looked for someone that had what I wanted, and I found a woman who was about 10 years older than I, who was about 5'2", blonde hair, blue eyes, and adorable. She kind of reminded me of the cheerleaders, at my high school. So that's what I wanted. It's funny when I think of it now, because what I wanted was something I could never have, because that's not me. That isn't how I am. I'm not 5'2". I don't have blonde hair or blue eyes. So I did the best I could with, my immaturity and being as young as I was and not really wanting to stop eating. So this piece of paper I was handed with a food plan on it was pretty structured, and if you deviated from it even slightly, you broke your abstinence. And so what I did with that was I used that as an excuse. I would deviate, a sponsor or somebody would say, I broke my abstinence, and then I could go binge. So I wasn't even honest enough to just say, screw it, I don't like this, I don't want to do this, I'm just going to go binge. I had to have somebody else make me feel bad about it. So the following year, I met my first husband. He made an Al-Anon 12-step call on me, and it was a disaster waiting to happen. He was a drug addict, an alcoholic, a pathological liar, and he said he loved me, and I figured that I better grab this person who said he loved me, because I probably never have another chance. And that was kind of who I was and where I was coming from. So I'm going to kind of cut this part short. So, we got married. I looked lovely. I was thin. I wasn't thin enough for me, but, I've never been anorexic and I've never been bulimic. My whole goal in life was to be full or to feel full. So those two options never appealed to me. And actually, I didn't even know about anorexia or bulimia in those days. But, I don't remember what I weighed when I got married, but I know that I gained 25 or 30 pounds within the first 2 months of being married. And then I got pregnant. And what I discovered was that I lost weight while I was pregnant. I thought I'd found the miracle. That's the answer to my weight problem. The problem was at the end, you have a baby you have to take care of for 20 years or however long it is. I did that twice. I got pregnant twice. The second time, I think that there really was a subconscious or unconscious, or maybe not so unconscious, reason of losing weight as a reason to get pregnant. It's not what I told anybody. It's not what I told myself. But I think that was a part of it. It didn't work as well the second time. So, and 2 years after that, or 2.5 years after that, whatever it was, my husband and I separated. And there I was 25 years old, 2 young children. My kids were 2 and 4. And I didn't have a college education. I had no degree. I didn't have any skills, and I had to support myself. And at the same time, I had been in and out of, I'd been coming to OA meetings. I'd gotten sober. I was going to AA meetings. AA meetings were much better because they were the parent program and they also had food. So, there were a number of us who would stand around the refreshment table after the meeting that would talk about how OA didn't work while we were shoving food in our mouth. So, that tells you a little bit. I could go into all the details of what kind of binging I did. And, a lot of the stuff I did, I learned in OA. I hadn't done yet, but I heard other people share it. So I did it. But I've done it all. I've done grazing all day long. I've done binge eating. I've eaten out of the garbage. I've eaten things that were too hot, too cold, frozen, whatever. I've done all that stuff. Hidden food, stolen food. There is no question in my mind that I am a compulsive overeater to this day. Even after 44 years of abstinence, I don't think about food that often. I don't have food dreams. I know what I can eat and what I can't. But I also know really clearly that if I ate the foods I can't eat, that I would be, I'd be off and running. So I know who I am. So after my first husband and I got divorced, I was thin when we got divorced. I gained a lot of weight. I think I gained 40, 50 pounds, something like that. And I was still saying how OA didn't work. And I was going to my regular Tuesday night AA meeting. And one night, instead of turning left to go to my AA meeting, I turned right and I ended up at an OA meeting. And it was a newcomers meeting before the regular meeting, and I walked in while the meeting was going on, and there was a woman who was leading the newcomers meeting who I used to stand around the refreshments table with, talking about how OA didn't work, and she's leading the newcomers meeting. And it was the first time that I ever truly understood what it meant to be powerless. It wasn't the word I used. I used the word hopeless that night, but it really was powerless. She talked about the compulsion or the obsession is like having a little man standing on your shoulder, pointing a gun at your head and saying, if you don't eat and you fill in whatever the blank is for you, I'm going to pull the trigger. And that's what it felt like. I felt totally, totally powerless. I couldn't stop. There was nothing I could do. And that, from that point forward, that wasn't the beginning of my abstinence, but it was the beginning of what ultimately led to my abstinence. It took me 10 years to get abstinent. And what finally happened was I deviated one more time from my food plan, which today I call a deviation. I don't call it a break in abstinence. And I called a friend of mine who I had a lot of trust in, and I told her what I had done. And she said to me, I told her I broke my abstinence, and then I told her what I had done, which really wasn't much of anything. And she said to me, aren't you sick and tired of starting over? And that just like bells went off. I realized, I don't think I could have verbalized it then, but I know for sure today that what was going on was My perfectionism was like a Siamese twin to my compulsive overeating. And as long as I kept feeling like I had to be perfect, I could never maintain abstinence. So that night, I remember just making a decision. I decided that I wasn't going to ever start over again. And I like to be really clear. That doesn't mean I can eat anything I want, anytime I want, however much I want, and call that abstinent. It doesn't mean I can binge and call that abstinent. It just means that I don't have to be perfect. That if, for example, if I ate something today that's not on my food plan, and I didn't binge on it, but I had some of it or whatever, I wouldn't call that breaking my abstinence, but it would be a signal to me that something's going on and I need to look at. And that in the past was always the thing that made me have to start over again. So that was October 12th, 1976, a little over 10 years after I first attended my first OA meeting. By this time, I had met my current husband. I laugh because he's not in program, but we met at an OA event. He plays the piano, and he was accompanying an OA member at a talent show that was for the OA birthday in Los Angeles. And that's how we met. So, I can't say that he was really familiar with OA just because he was, her pianist. He really never been to a meeting. He didn't really know anything about it. But we just celebrated in July our 40th wedding anniversary. And that is a bloody miracle, no question. It was a very difficult road. I was 27, he was 26. We were both too dependent. I was too independent. I had been so dependent on my first husband. I didn't know there was a healthy way to be dependent. So I was, sometimes too independent. I didn't know how to be in a relationship. I thought I did. But we struggled a lot. We went to a lot of therapy over the years. And the program tells us that we can seek outside help. And I have sought outside help. I've gone to therapy myself as well. I've gone to nutritionists. I've done all kinds of outside things. But the core and the base of my program is the 12 steps, of my recovery. I can't be in recovery without OA. I couldn't find abstinence in AA, because I need to be in OA. I need to be around people like me. And there may be people like me in other 12-step programs, but they may not be abstaining or following, the principles of the OA programs. So I really need to come here. This is my primary disease, and it's my primary recovery. I have two sons. They are now 50, and my older son's about to turn 52 next month. And it's kind of bizarre. Every time my oldest one, my firstborn, has a birthday, I say to him, how could you be whatever the age is? Like, how could you be 52? I'm only 52. And so it kind of feels that way. I had him when I was 20. I was really young. But my children, for me, in those first maybe 15, 20 years of my recovery, my relationship with my children was how I measured my recovery. Because when I started abstaining, I didn't have a very good relationship with them. I didn't know how to be a mother. I didn't have any good examples of how to be a mother. I didn't know how to take responsibility for my actions. I was really good at blaming other people, like my mother. And when I started taking responsibility for my actions, I could start to change them. I learned in OA to make amends, but I didn't learn at the beginning that making amends means to change your behavior. So I would say, I'm sorry, but just keep doing the same things over and over again. So as my children got older, I could see, that our relationship really changed. They stopped being afraid of me because I stopped hitting them. And I was never an abuser, but, I was one of those people who would randomly, slap them on the leg or, something like that. It's not something I'm proud of. I don't talk about it too often because, it still makes me sad that I did that. But I stopped when they were relatively young. I'm really proud to say that my son, who has two children, my second son, has never hit his kids. And I think that's direct relationship to the fact that I stopped hitting them. He used to say to me when I would give him a punishment, can't you just give me a spanking and get it over with? You know, but no, sorry, you're grounded for a week. Up until they became whatever age it is you become, and they both found partners, and, you start talking to them instead of your mother. Up until that age, they continued to call me with issues. Thank you, I see that, Pat, thanks. And problems and whatever. So, today, the relationships are really different. When you have older children, it's really different. I've moved twice in my recovery. I moved from Los Angeles to the San Francisco Bay Area in 1988. What I did when I moved was I got more heavily involved in service than I've been before. I wanted to get to know people, and the best way to get to know people, I learned that in Los Angeles, was to do service. First thing I did was I volunteered for a convention committee. And I don't know how much you know about the Bay Area, but it's all these counties, these smaller counties that are all around, but it's a big area with a lot of people. I got to meet people from all the different intergroups in the Bay Area that surrounded the San Francisco Bay from doing that kind of service. And it ultimately led to many levels higher of service. I've served on the Board of Trustees. I was the region chair. I chaired a convention myself. And then I kind of was like, okay, it's time to let other people do this service. And I didn't do any for 20 years. And then, above the group level, I did do service at the group level. But then 3 years ago, my husband and I moved to North Carolina. And I knew what to do. I started going to intergroup. I volunteered to be the region rep for my intergroup, which is how I met Kathy. And, I started meeting people from all these different areas. This time it's different states, in the region. And, and the other service that I do right now is I kind of run all of our Zoom meetings. I don't run them as in lead them all, but I'm kind of I'm the Zoom expert, and there's a lot of meetings I don't, but the meetings that I was going to, which was a Tuesday and a Friday, I set those up in Zoom. Then I started a Thursday and a Sunday. And so I'm the one that starts the Zoom meeting, and I make sure people are muted when they need to be, and so on. So, I was before the pandemic, I was going to 1 or 2 meetings a week. And now I go to 6 or 7 meetings a week. And it's just because, what else am I going to do? And it's really been a blessing, to do this. So the one thing I really wanted to talk about, and I didn't, is my I don't have time for my whole spiritual journey because it's a long, involved story. I could do a whole 20 minutes on that. But when I came into OA, I believed in God, but I didn't think God believed in me. I didn't think there was a God that could be personal to me, that God was too busy taking care of all the problems in the world, and I was insignificant. And it's evolved to a very personal relationship I have with my higher power. I kind of have 2 visions or 2 images or whatever it is of my higher power. One is this, what I call my little higher power, that lives in my heart, that's with me 24 hours a day, that isn't busy taking care of anybody but me. It's just mine. I don't have to share it. I can ask for God to look out for somebody or whatever, but that's my God. And then I have the same image I had when I came in, which is this big God in the sky. I don't know exactly what that means, but that higher power takes care of all the things that are out of my control. And I have learned the hard way in this program how much is out of my control. Many, many things are out of my control. I have been a very controlling, manipulative person in my life. I am not that way anymore. One of the character defects that I feel has, for the most part, really been removed. And my spiritual practice right now in the morning, I do meditation. I do set prayers, the same ones every day. I read the For Today and Voices of Recovery. Thank you, Pat. I write 5 things I'm grateful for, and I write 3 things I like about myself. The 3 things I like about myself, well, the 5 things I'm grateful for came from a sponsee. she had a different sponsor before me, and that was what her sponsor had her do. And I really liked it. And she calls me, and she still to this day, she calls me with her gratitudes, the first 3 steps in her gratitudes every morning. And then I started sharing it with other people I sponsored. And at some point I thought, this is really nice. I should do this myself. I'm asking other people to do it and I'm not doing it myself. So I started doing it myself. And the 3 things I like about myself came from seeing with this same sponsee that, she was having some issues around self-esteem. Well, I sure relate to that. And so I asked her to start writing 3 things she likes about herself. And then again, I thought, I should do this too. Yes, my self-esteem is miles from where it was when I came into OA, but it's not like I have perfect self-esteem. I mean, and try it sometime. It's really hard to come up with 3 things you like about yourself. And it's interesting to me, thank you, how many people think they have to write something different every day, including me. Sometimes like, well, I can't say that. I just said that yesterday. But it doesn't really matter. If I'm reinforcing something that I like about myself, that's what really counts. So I'm not going anywhere. I mean, after 54 years in OA and 44 years of abstinence, I don't have this is my home. This is where I feel at home. This is where I'm safe, where I can share, where I can talk, where I can cry. So I don't, I plan to be here until I take my last breath. This is where I belong. Thank you.